Hello everybody, and big thanks to Jeffers and Nicanor for inviting me to speak at the African Society of Association Executives. Today is Heritage Day in South Africa, and I'm up at a game farm in Limpopo province, so if I'm a little more casual than usual, please accept my apologies. I'm going to be talking to you about advocacy and partnership building in times of crisis. And I thought that what I would do is just kick off by talking a little bit about each of those three topics. Advocacy is an activity, of course, that aims to influence decisions within the political, the economic, and social environments. And so it's really about representing your industry sector in engagements with government. Partnership would be an arrangement where parties agree to cooperate to advance their mutual interests. And crisis, well, we're certainly in a crisis at the moment, any time when difficult or important decisions need to be made. And I think perhaps one of the most important things to say is that all associations engage in advocacy and partnership building. Just to put this into perspective, SACIA is a multifaceted organization. We have 10 special interest groups, and we're very involved in partnership building. Our professional designation for actors was developed in partnership with the Guild of Actors. Our professional designation for cinematographers was developed in partnership with the South African Society of Cinematographers. And SEPA, the Council of Event Professionals, one of our special interest groups, was in fact originally developed as a partnership between EXA, SACIA, and IFIA, the International Festival and Events Association. So partnership is very much in our DNA, as is advocacy. We're actively involved in engagements with government. We're actively involved in the development of professional designations. We're involved in standards generating bodies, very specifically the South African Bureau of Standards, where we have held a leadership role on the Technical Committee 264, responsible for the development of safety protocols for the events industry for more than 10 years. So advocacy and partnership is very much part of our DNA, but unfortunately, our DNA is not enough. And so if we have a look here, you'll see that the picture on the right is perhaps the SACIA commitment to collaboration and partnership in a pre-COVID world, and during COVID we've really needed to tone up. And perhaps the best example I can give you of collaboration in a COVID type environment has been the development and establishment of the South African Events Council. So this was something that happened back right at the beginning of March 2010, when COVID first came upon us. A number of the associations got together in our offices at the Ticket Pro Dome. Well, they didn't get together in our office, they just met at the Ticket Pro Dome where our offices were. And we started having a conversation about what was likely to happen with this COVID pandemic. At the time, none of us had any idea that it was going to go on for 18 months. Actually, we thought that it might be a month or two where there was kind of a slowdown in the economy, but not in a million years did we come anywhere close to believing that our industry sector would shut down. But we all sat down, we all got together. Over a period of time, new associations came on board, and the South African Events Council eventually was established with 14 member associations, all committed to working together to drive the adoption of professional standards, ethical business practices, shared commitment to transformation, shared commitment to industry certification, but more importantly, and particularly importantly in this instance, committed towards the development of an event reopening guide that would allow us as an industry sector to actually start presenting events that were safe for the participants that we were working with. So all 14 associations started working together. We worked very closely with the Event Safety Alliance in the US. I need to give them credit. They were a great inspiration. to us, but we worked together as a cooperative group to develop a comprehensive 72-page document focusing on how to go about opening the events industry in a safe fashion. The document was endorsed by all members of the Events Council. We published it on the 12th of June. We were very excited. We presented it to government. They received it with quite a lot of enthusiasm. But we found ourselves in a difficult position, and I think it was because government really looked at the events industry and they said, you know, it's a small industry sector. It doesn't contribute significantly to the GDP of the country. Reopening the events industry is high risk in terms of the spread of COVID. Actually, let's just put this document aside. Let's put these associations aside. And as you can imagine, this was not a response that was well received. And so the question that we asked is, what do we do about it? And the answer to that question was that we said, well, we need to have some kind of demonstration. And so we started working on what Sharif Baker, the SACIA board chair, called a silent protest, a silent demonstration. And we planned to host an event on the 5th of August 2020 called Light SA Red. And there were a number of things that we wanted to achieve within this framework. So we wanted government and financial institutions to extend financial relief to those who earn a living in the technical production and live events industry until we are permitted to work. We also wanted government to recognise SACIA and the South African Events Council as the legitimate voice of the events industry and to engage with us in a serious fashion. And then finally, we wanted government to recognise and support those non-profit organisations that exist in our sector that were trying to sustain destitute members of the technical production and live events industry. Sharif Baker is the SACIA board chair, and Sharif was appointed as the spokesperson for this Light SA Red initiative. And it had unprecedented support. The industry came together to demonstrate their support. Everybody from performers to service providers, venues, designers, event organisers, all came together to fight for the survival of the events industry in South Africa. Everybody that was involved contributed their time and their talent, their skills and their hardware and their resources on a voluntary basis in support of the campaign. Hashtag Light SA Red caught the imagination of the general public, and industry supporters who joined the campaign posted photographs of their own homes and profiles lit in red on social media to demonstrate their solidarity for this initiative. So it was very exciting. And on the 5th of August, we actually were able to illuminate 505 iconic buildings and performance spaces in red across all provinces, including spaces like the Table Mountain and the Ticket Pro Dome and the Voortrekker Monument. So there was a huge commitment to this cause, and it was the first step in the process of engaging with government. The next step, of course, was to say, what did we do in the build-up? How were we able to achieve all of this success? And the answer is that we had a huge amount of PR activity. In the run-up to the event, Sharif Baker, as I said earlier, the SACIA board chair, participated in hundreds of radio and television interviews. We experienced massive exposure across radio, television, print, online, outdoor media. So this is one of the billboards that we had. I think we had 30 or 40 billboards around the country shooting out our message. And as I said earlier, 493 million rand, almost 500 million rand in value related to print and online media in the build up to the event. It included a 12-hour live stream broadcast from 2 studios, one in Johannesburg, one in Cape Town, that had more than 30,000 viewers live participating in this particular event. So a huge project. We were very pleased with the outcome. And in fact, not only were we pleased with the outcome, but we were also rewarded with a PRISM award from the Public Relations Institute, who recognized the great work that had been done in terms of the PR activity. So if you have a look at some of the pictures from the event, here's a photograph of Table Mountain, illuminated in red. Here's a photograph of the Montecasino, just outside Johannesburg. Here's a photograph of the Kyalami racetrack, and then finally a photograph of the Cape Town Sports Stadium. So as I said, we had very specific objectives in mind. One of them was that we actually wanted to engage more actively with government. And great news is that exactly 30 days after the Light SA Red campaign, on the 5th of September, we were able to arrange a meeting with Minister Nati Mtetwa, the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, who sat down with us. We'd asked for a seat at the table, and he actually opened his doors and just made himself and his staff very, very, we were able to access him, and this was something unprecedented, never happened before. So, just what is it that we were looking for? Well, I'm not going to read the slides here. One of the things that we were able to do is open a dialogue with the Department of Employment and Labour to assist with TERS payments and explore opportunities for financial relief covering companies, employed individuals and freelancers. The Solidarity Fund that was set up by the government distributed 69,000 food parcels through 17 community-based and faith-based organizations at a provincial and local level. So, both of those were objectives that we had, and we were very pleased that we were able to achieve that. And then finally, the minister appointed a ministerial advisory team that were able to then work with him in finding solutions to the problems that our industry sector was experiencing. And once again, SACIA in the Events Council played a major role. Sharif Baker, the chair of SACIA, and one of the members of the South African Events Council, was appointed as chair of this ministerial advisory team. And throughout 2021, we've been actively engaged at the highest level, not just with the minister, but with all of the staff that he has supporting him in his office. The other thing that we've done is we took the presentation and the safety guidelines that we had developed for events and started working with the sporting bodies so that we could put together safety protocols that would apply to the return of spectators to sporting events. And in order to do that, we work very closely with SASOC, which is the South African Sport and Olympic Council. I'm sure that there's a missing letter there, but essentially that's what it is. We work with all of the sporting bodies, including what we define as the holy trinity of sports, officials from rugby and cricket and football, to develop a safety protocol that would allow for the return of spectators to sporting events. That was a document that was published in June 2021. Again, we were able to present it to government. Again, we got positive feedback, but there was a suggestion that it was too early for us to propose, reopening sporting events and business events. And then a few months later, we found ourselves in a situation where we then partnered with Nedlac. So Nedlac is the National Economic Development and Labour Council. They and their social partners engaged with us, and we worked together to update our proposals and to prepare a new presentation that we then delivered to NAT Joints, the National Joint Operational and Intelligence Service. And that presentation was delivered on behalf of all of the members of the Events Safety Council, all of the members of the South African Events Council, all of the members of SASOC, and all of the members of SAMIC, which is the South African Music Industries Council, supported by TADA, the Theatre and Dance Alliance. So we probably had, I don't know, close on 140, 150 different associations that we were engaged with, working together with to develop an event safety protocol that would allow for the opening of the events industry. Have we been successful? Not yet, but we're getting there, and we are confident that we're on the right track. And more importantly, we're confident that the doors that have been opened that allow us to engage with government at this senior level will remain open. You know, I've kind of flipped through this in 15 minutes, and I have to say that it seems as if I've rushed it and not actually given justice to the amount of work that was involved. But just to put this into perspective, if you look at that timeline, we kicked off in March 2020 with the establishment of the South African Events Council. 3 months later, we launched the Event Safety Guide, a comprehensive guide that looked at event safety. Exactly 1 month after that, we were involved in starting to plan the Light SA Red campaign, which ran in August. In September, we had our first one-on-one meeting with the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. Shortly after that, we started partnering with SASOC to develop safety protocols for the sports industry. So now we're talking about you know, a maybe 6-month period of time. In March 2021, we published the reopening guidelines that would allow spectators back to sporting events. Sharif was appointed as the chair of the ministerial advisory team. We started collaborating with the South African Music Industry Council and TDA and other organizations. In September, we did our presentation to Nedlac, and along with them delivered the same presentation to Nat Joints. So we've achieved a great deal in a very short period of time, and we've done it because we've had this shared commitment to cooperation, collaboration, partnership building. And actually, I think that we've achieved marvelous things. 7 lessons that we've learned in this process. One of them is that the more connected you are, the faster your network grows. And I think that Charlotte Kemp covered this point in one of her in a previous presentation, the one that was on just before me, is that your sphere of influence expands exponentially. This has been a roller coaster ride, and the more people that hear about what we're doing, the more people want to be involved. So we started off collaborating with 1 organization, and that became 2, and that became 4, and that became 8, and it's been an incredible roller coaster. And sometimes it's about just holding on for as long as you can to make sure that you achieve your objectives. A couple of the other points that we would make, however, is that action speaks louder than words. We've absolutely come across organizations in this journey who make a lot of noise but achieve very little. And so one of the things that I want to suggest is that if you have a vision and you want to kind of put some work into developing a program, just do it. Don't worry about fighting outside your weight limit. If it's something that's important, if it needs to be done, just do it. Collaboration, the other point I would make, collaboration is not a democracy. You can't work with 150 other organizations and wait for everybody to be on the same page before you move forward. You need to make tough decisions, and sometimes you need to impose them upon others. So collaboration is not a democracy. And when you're in a situation of crisis, and this is where we started the presentation, we spoke about crisis, absolutely important that you don't try to look for agreement on every single point. Get buy-in for the broad picture, and then ask people to give you a mandate to drive it forward according to that broad picture. Act because it's the right thing to do, and know that in that process, you will have people that point fingers at you and berate you and try to diminish you for everything that you've done. So recognize that life is short and stop worrying about all of these things. You know what needs to be done. Just go out and do it. One of my favorite films is a Ridley Scott film. It's called Kingdom of Heaven. And there's a character in it played by Orlando Bloom, Balian, the defender of Jerusalem. And in this film, Balian says, "What man is a man who does not make the world better?" That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the world better. We're trying to make our world better. 5 times we cried ourselves to sleep. This is a slow process, and patience is bitter. You want to move forward, but whilst patience is bitter, its fruit is sweet. You need to be patient. You need to know that people will ride on your coattails and then claim credit for the work that you and your colleagues have done. The wheels of bureaucracy move slowly. Live with it. Don't look for instant results. Know that the people that you're working with don't always disclose their interests and their intentions. But also know that relationships are fragile. On occasion, you may need to be tough, but there are occasions when you need to be gentle. There are other instances where people will be working at cross purposes. And sometimes if you want to move forward, those relationships need to be broken. I'm getting near the end. I think I'm just gone over 23 odd minutes. 3 core requirements for collaboration. Number 1, have a clearly articulated mission statement. Know what it is that you're trying to achieve. Number 2, make sure that you have a supportive board and the volunteer leadership backs you up. And number 3, be aware that whilst you need your board chair to have your back, you also need to have either his or hers, depending on who it is. There is a big difference when it comes to partnerships between being engaged with a partner and being enmeshed with a partner. And it may well be that you want to just consider what the consequences of being engaged versus enmeshed are. You need to be able to define yourself within the partnership. So, I've put up these various colors. Let's say that SACIA is red and Association X is green. We can collaborate with each other and play in the yellow space, but we each have our own identity. I am red, partner X is green, and when we work together, we play in the yellow space. When the red and the green, when either the red or the green disappears, we're no longer engaged. Now we're enmeshed. Now we've lost our identity and perhaps even lost our mission and our purpose. So have a clear understanding of what your mission statement is and stick to it. Stick to your knitting. At the same time, you need to be open to new ideas. You need to explore new communication tools and new technologies, and you need to maintain that commitment to continuing professional development so that you keep yourself up to date with the trends and the technologies that are shaping the future during this crisis. And I think that's a key aspect here. We are in a state of crisis. Things are going to break. Things are going to go wrong. So having that clear understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve is really critical. What are the next steps? Well, both from a SACIA perspective and from the perspective of the South African Events Council, we are absolutely open to increased collaboration with national and regional and perhaps even international organizations. We think that the idea of sharing resources is going to become ever more important. During this pandemic, several of the associations, sorry about that, during this crisis, several of the associations have had to vacate their offices, and it's very likely when we reopen that we'll be looking at a situation where we consider the idea of sharing office space and perhaps even sharing staff. We have a shared commitment to standards and training and certification protocols. I think that's very important. There's a broad understanding that associations should stick to their knitting, a recognition that each of us does something different, so we don't want to cross into each other's lane. And then finally, perhaps a note from me, one of the things that I've found during this COVID pandemic is that the pandemic itself has highlighted the need for professional association leadership. There are many associations that have popped up and that are trying very hard to represent various industry sectors. But I think that there has been a realization that associations that are run by industry professionals who are dedicated to the task of leading and running an association have been able to achieve much more than volunteer-led associations. And so it's highlighted for me the importance of professional recognition within the association sector, particularly things like the AfSAE's CAE program, the Certified Association Executive. I think that there's certainly an opportunity for us to drive professional designations and continuing professional development in the industry sector on the back of this COVID pandemic. So there you go. Just some broad thoughts about cooperation, collaboration, partnership building, and government representation during a time of crisis. I hope that you found it useful. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop me an email. My email address is Kevan, spelt K-E-V-A-N, at SACIA, spelt SACIA.org.za. Thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you. Cheerio.